We join you right now with some breaking news. Of course, as you see at the bottom of your screen, Iran has sent missiles to Qatar and Iraq. This, according to Axios, first reporting that information. This just happened within the hour. This is breaking news here on Right Side Broadcasting Network. We're seeing and hearing that 5 minutes ago, open source intel on X. This is an account that President Trump highlighted the other day, talking about saying Fordo is gone. He screenshotted something from this open source intel, which is OSINT 613. 5 minutes ago, they said that sirens continue to sound at U.S. bases across the Middle East, including in Syria, Iraq, Jordan, Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Bahrain, Qatar, the UAE, and Oman. So this is happening right now as we speak. As we may be able to get some of this open source intel or other sources up on the side of the screen there, as we know that this just happened moments ago. And this is while President Trump at about 9 minutes ago was scheduled for that 1 o'clock national security team meeting in the Oval Office. Well, now I'm sure he's going to the Situation Room as we bring you live coverage right now of this breaking news. Once again, Axios reporting Iran has fired missiles to the U.S. bases in Qatar and Iraq. We are hearing this again from Axios. A few other outlets are reporting that. We're also seeing from an account, again, that President Trump has referred to as the commander-in-chief on Truth Social, that sirens continue to sound at U.S. bases across the Middle East. As we get any split screen information, whether it's video, whether it's photos, whether it's screenshots of other situations where BNO News and Disclosed.tv have also reported that Axios is saying that Iran has fired missiles to the United States bases in Qatar and Iraq. I've also seen a number of reports out there that these bases may have already been evacuated. I also saw a report from a number of people, including Charlie Kirk, saying that 3 hits may have happened to our bases, but reporting at this point that there may be no injuries. But this is still a very breaking news situation. So it's one of those things, of course, as we call it, fluid situation. Well, that's what it is right now. We're seeing a lot of developments come in right now. So director and producers, this is where we have to all work together, of course. As you guys see anything while I'm here delivering news, just let me know what you guys see as well. All right, so we're seeing that President Trump is currently in the Situation Room with the Defense Secretary and Joint Chiefs. That's now 7 minutes ago, according to open source intel. I'm glad that President Trump the other day on Truth Social used this X account. We're using it as well. If we get any visuals or any other information, whether we confirm it independently or if we cite the sources that are reporting this, just like Axios did. This breaking news happened about 20 minutes ago right here on Right Side. We saw that here at the network as we were covering something with the Department of Homeland Security, an opening of a new facility in Harpers Ferry, West Virginia. But now, of course, shifting into a different gear, the 24/7 news cycle, breaking news at this point, as we are going to monitor any outcomes of what just happened, as this is something I saw specifically as well from the open source intel saying that the Israeli military says it has conducted multiple strikes on missile and drone storage facilities in western Iran. Open source intel in parentheses saying potentially missiles ready to launch at the U.S. So that is according to open source intel. Now, the reason why I'm using that specific source at this point, yes, there's Axios, there's Disclosed.tv for more of that foreign kind of coverage, right? You know, obviously we have no bureaus based in London here at Right Side, but here's the thing. We are connected to the White House. They're able to send us information just like they can send the networks information. We do have some sources there at the White House as well. And this is that kind of day and age where information travels at light speed. So we're going to be able to see everything that's being reported. Now, here's the thing. Again, we're saying we're seeing reports or we're hearing reports or allegedly this happened because we don't have receipts right this second. Now, there are some videos being posted by open source intel saying just minutes ago in Qatar, as Iran launched a ballistic missile attack targeting the Al Udeid Air Force Base or Air Base, which houses U.S. and coalition forces. We're seeing that the ballistic missile attack targeting this area, and we're monitoring all of that as we can. Now, 17 minutes ago, according to Iranian state TV, they claim that the armed forces responsible, or the armed forces responded, quote, strongly and successfully to what it calls, quote, U.S. aggression. At least 10 ballistic missiles, we're told, have been launched at U.S. bases in the region. That, according to open source intel. This is a group on X that's reporting as many facts as possible, or reporting on what they're hearing as well. But again, using this source today specifically, we have other sources we can cite, which we will, I'm sure, throughout this broadcast. But the reason why we're using open source intel, President Trump used a screenshot the other day. It said Fordo is gone. He used it. If the commander-in-chief is safe enough using this open source intel, which is OSINT613 on X, I feel safe as well using that. And on top of that, it's accurate with what Axios was just reporting about the breaking news that Iran has fired missiles to U.S. bases in Qatar and Iraq. So if we have any visuals that we could show you on the other side of the screen, that'd be great. We'll see if we can get that up. But also, we'll be monitoring all the details here. Any response from the United States in regards to this. I mean, this is something that I don't think is going to take an hour for a response. The reason why I say that is because the president is in the Situation Room right now. You better believe our U.S. forces were ready and on high alert, on the highest alert you can be, at any kind of retaliatory action. At this point, what we're seeing is Axios and open source intel and other outlets out there are confirming that this is already happening, that there have been a retaliation from the Iranians to United States bases. Now, we're also seeing from the open source intel that the Israelis have struck a number of very different areas there in Iran and Western Iran, talking about the fact that they may be trying to preempt any kind of other activity that would be used from Western Iran. As you see there from OSINT Defender, aircraft are currently being scrambled from Prince Sultan Air Base in Saudi Arabia. So that's an interesting post. We'll see what that means and what will transpire there. So as we continue this live broadcast, as our producers, our directors, as we continue to put up any kind of split screen images, we'll refer to that. As they do that, I'll continue to monitor any sources that we have here at the network, on top of keeping a look at X and Truth Social. We'll see if the president makes any statements here. We do see that on Truth Social, Charlie Kirk saying the U.S. Al Udeid Air Base in Qatar reports no casualties and no major damage, saying praise God if confirmed true. Of course, we agree with that. All eyes on Bahrain attack, which is ongoing. So we're seeing anything right now live here on Right Side Broadcasting Network, awaiting the president of our country to see if he'll post anything. But he has a lot of things to take care of. I believe more important than letting us know what's going on, because he is literally in the Situation Room right this second in Washington, D.C., at the White House, covering and watching and monitoring and making decisions, I'm sure, because the Iranians have decided, according to reports we're seeing, to retaliate against the United States, to retaliate against bases in the Middle East. So we know that Israel is already there as an ally. The United States, our country, already has a number of bases in the Middle East. We also have a number of naval equipment there, a lot of ships that were there during this attack that happened 48 hours ago. No word yet if those ships have left the region. Are they still there? Are those potential targets? Are our U.S. bases potential targets? Other ones, other than what we're hearing, that Iran has fired missiles to U.S. bases in the Middle East. So what we're going to do is we're going to have to monitor this throughout the afternoon here, as it's 1:17 Eastern time. Again, if you're just joining us, Iran has fired missiles at U.S. bases. We know that President Trump said specifically, I'm going to go to his quote from the other day, about the fact that if there would be any kind of retaliation by Iran, President Trump says against the United States of America will be met with force far greater than what was witnessed on Saturday night. The president saying thank you, Donald Trump, President of the United States. So this is something that once the Iranians decided to attack a number of U.S. bases, of course, we're going to see what our action now will be. Will this be a thing from the 30,000-foot view of retaliatory attacks, airstrikes back and forth for a little bit, and then we're done? Or is this something that's going to lead us into something further within a war kind of strategy and situation? Again, we don't know that answer, so we will just monitor what's happening in the minute, in the second, right here on Right Side. Let's see if we can go to any videos from online or anything on X or any kind of sources that we see out there reporting on any details, as it's 1:19 Eastern time. This around 1 o'clock, maybe 12:55 is when we first saw that there was some sort of action going on there. Axios was reporting it. Specifically, the first time that I saw something was at 12:44 actually. 12:44, I did a screenshot of BNO News and Disclose.tv. They said, according to Axios, Iran fires missiles towards U.S. base in Qatar. And then Disclose.tv said, Iran launches missiles toward American bases in Qatar, say Israeli official. I'm going to shift over to some Israeli media to see if they're reporting on any of this happening. Of course, this is breaking news throughout the country, throughout the world right now, that Iran would make a decision like this to retaliate against the United States bases there in the Middle East. And as we get information, as we get more details, we'll be sure to pass it along to you. If we hear that the president may be doing a speech later, we'll see. But right now, speeches aside, Truth Social posts aside, we know that the president is in the Situation Room as we speak to monitor this situation and also take action if that's what he decides to do. We do know that the president said if there would be any sort of retaliation from Iran, that there would be something far greater than what happened on Saturday night, what happened in response. So we are covering that, monitoring that here. Israeli News I-24 saying Iran launches missiles at U.S. bases in Qatar and Iraq. Source confirms to I-24 News. That is a Israeli-based news outlet that is in the Middle East. Also, I will go to some of the Middle East type of channels that are out there. Before I do, I'm going to get any more information here. It looks like the open source intel says that there are sirens sounded in Bahrain's capital. That's happening right now. No casualties reported from Iranian missile attacks on U.S. bases. That, according to Fox just a minute ago on Disclose.tv. Open source intel. Qatar reports no casualties from the attack on the U.S. military base. Just in from Qatar, the open source intel, as you see, OSINT Defender as well with information there, as I can hopefully I'll be able to pull that up on a bigger screen here. It's pretty small from my vantage point, but you can probably read it at home. Qatar condemns Iranian attack on the El Udeid base, calling it a blatant violation of its sovereignty and international law. Doha deserves or reserves the right to respond proportionately. The missiles were intercepted, no casualties reported. Qatar urges an end to military escalation and a return to dialogue. BNO News reporting, Qatar says Iranian missile attack on U.S. base was successfully intercepted with no reports of casualties. So this is all happening as we speak right now at 1:22 Eastern time out there in the Middle East. The time is specifically in Riyadh, it's 8:22. In Tehran, 8:52 p.m. In Jerusalem, it is 8:22. So it's the evening hours there in the Middle East. Not too late either. Primetime hours there, as we refer to primetime here, it's, you know, between 7 and 10 o'clock at night. Well, it's primetime hours out there in the Middle East right now, around the 8 o'clock hour, as we monitor the latest information we get that we see online, and of course a number of sources from around the country speaking to various news outlets, and also Axios saying that the United States, some of the bases there have been fired upon by Iran. So we're going to have to go to OSINT Defender. I'll go to that right now on my page here as well, as you see on your screen, because this is something that we were wondering about. We were wondering, will there be a retaliatory effort made by Iran? And we know that if that was to happen, that we would indirectly, I wouldn't say indirectly, we would directly destroy certain parts of this situation. I'll keep it at that. I'll keep it in general terms. We'll see what President Trump does. But this is very interesting developments because, again, will this be a few airstrikes back and forth and maybe by next week we're back to a better situation? Or is this something that's going to be a bit longer than that? And this is all on top of Homeland Security putting out a bulletin to the homeland for us to be safe here and to watch out, and to keep an eye out. And then also the Department of State, putting out information and saying, this is a worldwide caution for those that are traveling to various countries. So a lot going on right now, of course, as you are watching live on Right Side Broadcasting Network. Director, could you guys please send me the link to this OSINT Defender on the internal communications, as I'm looking at one of the other outlets as well as we monitor what's going on out there. In the meantime, let's go to disclose.tv. Iran coordinated attacks on the U.S. airbase in Qatar, with Qatari officials providing advance notice to minimize casualties. That, according to the New York Times. Interesting. Because one of the reports are saying that Qatar was saying they're condemning this. The New York Times saying that Iran coordinated attacks on the U.S. airbase in Qatar with Qatari officials. So the Iranians and Qataris coordinate. These are all preliminary things. We're going to have to wait and see. That, according to the New York Times. Okay, let's see if we've got this latest info with the OSINT Defender. I'm not sure if I'm getting it yet here on the Slack channel or the internal communication channel. It's just not posting yet. So we do see information there as it's scrolling through. I will go to that specifically once we get more information. I do see from our President and COO, Grace O'Donnell, about 1220 of the OSINT Defender. The statement from the Qatari Ministry of Defense in response to the ballistic missile attack moments ago. The Ministry of Defense announced that Qatari air defenses successfully intercepted a missile attack targeting Al Udeid Air Base that in Qatar. Thanks to God and the vigilance of the armed forces, the personnel, and the precautionary measures taken, the incident resulted in no deaths or injuries. The ministry reaffirmed that the airspace and territory of the state of Qatar are safe and the Qatari armed forces are always fully prepared to deal with any threat. The Ministry of Defense also advises citizens and residents to follow official sources for directives and the latest developments. So that's what we're doing too. I mean, outside of reporting from various sources that we see out there, disclose.tv or Axios, that we still have to wait to see what the receipts are and the confirmation from. Because again, disclose.tv 24 seconds ago or a minute ago saying that Iran coordinated attacks on the U.S. airbase in Qatar with Qatari officials, providing advance notice to minimize casualties. That, according to the New York Times. So that's a puzzling report there. But again, that's what happens in breaking news. You just roll with it. You see the different sources, and we bring you everything we can live again. But on the 30,000-foot view, we know that we attacked Iran times 3, right? 3 different sites on Saturday. It's now, less than 48 hours later, and we know that we were wondering, well, is Iran going to retaliate? Well, it looks like they have, according to all these reports that we're seeing out there. So we will be monitoring all of this as it happens. Also, we do know that the president has been in he had a scheduled 1 o'clock meeting at the White House for the national security team in the Oval Office. Well, now the environment has changed there at the White House. He's not in the Oval. He is now in the Situation Room, according to various reports. So he's there with the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Daniel Kaine. I'm sure the Secretary of Defense is there, the Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, there at the White House. This is a very, very high stakes and interesting time right now to report to you live at 1:28, Monday, June 23rd. This is the bottom of the hour. Thanks so much for streaming in. We are going to continue to monitor various reports that we see throughout the afternoon. I mean, this is something that is a constant breaking news story. This reminds me on so much of a smaller scale, still a serious scale, but when there would be a tornado touchdown in an area and we'd have to go continually wall to wall to find out which direction will the tornado go, and we'd monitor that. Well, this is much higher stakes in the sense of a U.S. base being attacked by a foreign country, but still just as important to monitor weather events is to monitor events of significance like this that's happening right now. Crew, could you guys send me the OSINT Defender link to the internal communications here on our group message, so I can go to that link and read that a little clearer, because it's a bit far from the screen at this point right now. But again, Axios reporting that breaking news some time ago that Iran has fired missiles to U.S. bases in Qatar and Iraq. That's the report we're seeing as we're continuing our live coverage right now on the fly here. Iran coordinated the attacks on the American air base in Qatar with Qatari officials and gave advanced notice that attacks were coming to minimize casualties, according to 3 Iranian officials familiar with the plans. So again, it looks as if Qatar and Iran kind of work together. It's what it says, if I'm not mistaken. I mean, it says that they coordinated this situation there. So far, we're monitoring all of the events live right now. Director and producer, can you guys please send the OSINT Defender link to me so I can click on that and check it out live here as we continue to watch what comes in to the network as we are at 1:30 Eastern time. The president's been in the office now for some time, the Oval Office. He was in the Oval Office at first. Thank you, guys. The Oval Office at first. And now what we're seeing is that it appears that 3 minutes ago from OSINT Defender, it appears that tonight's attack by Iran only targeted the Al Udeid air base in Qatar, with all other reports of attacks in Bahrain, Iraq, Kuwait, and Saudi Arabia either the result of attacks from Iranian-backed militia groups or entirely false. The sirens in Bahrain and Kuwait appear to have been just precautionary. So just imagine being one of our service members, one of our military service members in the Middle East, knowing, and there are several bases all across the Middle East. If you look at a map, I mean, there's a lot of them there. And just imagine, trying to sleep last night, or the night before. I mean, this is what they've prepared for and trained for. But knowing that there could be retaliatory actions from Iran, and that's exactly what we just saw happen, according to these reports, to U.S. bases. When I say to, T-O, not T-W-O, but to U.S. bases. So we're looking to see if there's any more details about what's going on out there, because 12 seconds ago, we're hearing that even if the attack failed, and even if a warning was given in advance, I still don't see President Trump taking this one on the chin and allowing Iran to attack a base in Qatar without significant consequences for the Iranian armed forces. That an opinion from OSINT Defender, 1.4 million followers on X, but also President Trump referred to one of these type of accounts just the other day on Truth Social, when the attack to Fordo, the facility there, was hit. The president used one of the screenshots from an account that is similar to this. It's OSINT 613, I believe. And then it said Fordo is gone. So This is an organization or a group that, it says right there, open source intelligence monitor focused on Europe and conflicts across the world. Yes, we also look at reports from Axios and other reports that are happening out there that have a very global presence. You know, you have bureaus in Beijing, London, Sydney, you know, all over the world, Jerusalem and that kind of thing. So we're obviously gathering all of our different sources and resources here at the network, because this is something that once again kicks into high gear, that 24/7 news cycle. We thought, or we wondered, would there be an Iranian retaliation? And most, you know, common sense, you would think probably. Well, we talked about that earlier on the broadcast, and now we know that the Iranians, the IRGC, so that is, if I have it correctly, the Islamic Republic government coalition, and I'll get the specifics on all of the letters there, but it is definitely the Islamic Republic leadership of Iran decided that they're going to use the Iranian air force there and attack some U.S. bases, or a U.S. base at this point. So this is something, again, the president is in the Situation Room right now, specifically looking at all of what's going on in the Middle East. Maybe, who knows, at this point, we could already be striking right back at this point as we speak. And we know that if you're in the military and you're in the Middle East, you're already, you know, you have their 24/7 watch. This is not something where, okay, it's 10 o'clock, guys, lights out. No, you had the crew all night up watching and monitoring. Just imagine all the radars going on right now, monitoring radar, whether it's at CENTCOM, whether it's at NORAD, whether it's overseas, wherever it is. So many different groups of our military monitoring things like this. And they're already, right now, they were ready even before the breaking news happened, that if there was a U.S. base strike by Iran, that the United States military would be ready to go. They may have already taken action. I don't know. I'm not in the Situation Room with the president. But we do know that this is not something that happens slowly. This is a swift thing, but sometimes you have to take a second, look at what happened, and we'll see what happens there. I'm not a military expert by any means, but we do know that we have the most powerful military on earth. Whether you were for, whether you were against what happened on Saturday night, we're reporting what's happening right now here on Right Side Broadcasting Network. My name's Matthew Alvarez. It's 1:35 Eastern, Monday, June 23rd. And we see a number of posts on X right now from this group, this open source intelligence monitor focused on Europe and conflicts across the world. Bahrain has now also closed its airspace following both Qatar and the United Arab Emirates. It's so interesting to think that President Trump was just in Qatar. I believe it's at the same base that may have been hit by the Iranians. So that's very interesting to see that. So monitoring the latest as we get it here on Right Side Broadcasting Network. As we get this feed of OSINT Defender, we will continue to monitor that. I will also monitor a few other sites here, including from Axios. We do see on open source intel that, again, Bahrain has now closed its airspace. That is accurate reporting right there, according to what OSINT Defender is reporting. Breaking 911 saying Trump is in the Situation Room. Will he strike back is the question. So we'll see there. Also, the New York Times report that we showed a bit earlier. Iran coordinated the attacks on the American airbase in Qatar with Qatari officials and gave advanced notice that attacks were coming to minimize casualties, according to 3 Iranian officials familiar with the plans. The officials said Iran symbolically needed to strike back at the U.S., but at the same time carried out in a way that allowed all sides an exit ramp. They described it as a similar strategy to 2020 when Iran gave Iraq a heads up before firing ballistic missiles at an American base in Iraq following the assassination of its top general. If that's all that happens in the sense of what happened then, because I remember that report where it was just a retaliatory airstrike and then they called it off and there's nothing else after that. If that's what happened here, then that is actually a positive development, but it's way too early to tell. So we're going to see if there's any more strikes by our country, if there's any strikes from Iran, if there's any strikes from Israel to Iran, if any of Iran's proxies will throw their hat in the ring. I mean, this is a very, very real situation, as you guys know. So thanks for streaming in. This was just, 48 hours ago, or less than 48 hours ago, we heard from President Trump saying, delivering the information about the 3 strikes to Iran. And we also saw on Truth Social, President Trump saying specifically any retaliation by Iran against the United States of America will be met with force far greater than what was witnessed on Saturday, that according to the president. So if this is true, he says, quote, any retaliation by Iran against the United States of America will be met with force far greater than what was witnessed on Saturday. So if that comes to pass, which it may, because this is a retaliation from Iran, President Trump saying that Iran will be met with force far greater than what was witnessed on Saturday. So we saw that there were B-2 bombers that were used on Saturday. We saw that there were submarines used and Tomahawk missiles and all sorts of weaponry against those 3 sites in Iran. So the question now is, which direction does this go? Does this escalate? Are there more airstrikes? Does this escalate to a longer situation than what happened again in 2020? If you remember here, this is from the New York Times, just double checking the source here. Specifically, Iran coordinated the attacks on the American airbase in Qatar with Qatari officials and gave advance notice that attacks were coming to minimize casualties, according to 3 Iranian officials familiar with the plans. The officials said Iran symbolically needed to strike back at the U.S., but at the same time carried it out in a way that allowed all sides an exit ramp. They described it as a similar strategy to 2020 when Iran gave Iraq a heads up before firing ballistic missiles at an American airbase or an American base in Iraq following the assassination of its top general. So yeah, we're going to see if it's just one airstrike from Iran, or if this is going to be more than that. And then also, again, the president in the Situation Room right now, speaking with his military officials, his national security team. They were, of course, on standby since, I believe it was on Friday night. The president went to Bedminster, New Jersey for that MAGA Inc. dinner, but man, oh man, he was back at the White House the next day, Saturday morning. And I remember seeing that there would be a 6 p.m. National Security Council meeting at the Oval Office, and that was Saturday night. And then at 7:50 Eastern, President Trump presses a button on Truth Social, letting the country and the world know that the 3 strikes were successful. The strikes started, according to the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Daniel Kaine, and the Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth, yesterday morning. They said specifically that in that 6 o'clock hour, around 6 o'clock Eastern on Saturday, is when the military operation happened. The Operation Midnight Hammer occurred. And then we heard more details about that in the press conference from the Pentagon yesterday. Fast forward to today, at about 12:45, we received reports from Axios and others reporting that there were Iranian missiles sent, or at least fired, to a U.S. base there in the Middle East. And now the question is, will there be more, or is that it? And what will President Trump do in response, if anything? Because he did say, again, we'll go back to the quote, because that's what we have to do, is we have to stick to what the leader of the free world said, specifically that any retaliation by Iran against the United States of America will be met with force far greater than what was witnessed on Saturday. So that, according to the president. This is video right here from specifically, I'm going to get to that in a second. If you guys could tell me in my ear what that is, and then I will also look for it online at this point. But it is 1:42 Eastern. I'm trying to, the words are way too small to read that from this vantage point. So I'm going to have to look a little closer on here. I think that we're seeing that at least OSINT Defender saying on a separate post that panic seen in Doha during the Iranian ballistic missile attack earlier against the Al Udeid air base in Qatar, which is our base. Okay, so these are the skies over Qatar right there. You can see interceptions happening. That was 44 minutes ago, according to our producers. So we're seeing that this is what the scene looks like as it is about in the 8 to 9 o'clock hour in the evening in the Middle East right now. So just imagine living in a place like Doha, and you look up and you see that and you're like, whoa, what's going on? Well, Iran trying to strike a Qatari airbase. This is wild to see this video, to be honest with you, to see these explosions. This is something that, you know, years and years and years ago, with the fast-paced way of being able to record something, upload it to the internet, and be able to see it in almost within an hour is unbelievable. This is something that, you know, the old-time news anchors and reporters couldn't ever have possibly be done, because of the lightning speed of the information age that we live in. Look at this. This is an unbelievable video in the skies over Qatar. The report we're seeing, the White House has no updates on President Trump's 1 p.m. meeting with his national security team. As we get any updates, of course, we'll bring that to you. There specifically when it comes to whether it's President Trump on Truth Social, whether it's President Trump calling another announcement from the East Room of the White House like he did on Saturday night, talking about the 3 strikes that our U.S. forces hit in Iran, and specifically the main part of that, Fordow, F-O-R-D-O-W, and President Trump using some of the same X accounts that we're monitoring right now, like OSINT, Defender, and others, used a screenshot of one of them just saying Fordow is gone. Look at this video here as well. Maybe we could, if the video is long enough, producers, we can go to this full and listen to it with audio if we want. Okay, there's no audio we're hearing. There's no audio, but this is some video there. I'm going to go onto the website here, or the X account as well, to double check which video specifically this is. How many minutes ago was this one, guys? 4 minutes ago? Okay. So we're going to go to this 4 minutes ago and check it out, as well as we're seeing what appears to be a section of the dual pulse solid rocket motor on a Patriot PAC-3 MSE surface-to-air missile found in Qatar following tonight's Iranian ballistic missile attack against the El Udeid Air Base, which is our United States base there in Qatar. Again, this video appears to be a section of the dual pulse solid rocket motor on a Patriot PAC-3 MSE surface-to-air missile found in Qatar. That video there. And the video that we were just showing moments ago, thanks to our crew behind the scenes right now, was the skies over Qatar, a battle between interceptors and incoming ballistic missiles observed in the sky over Qatar, as we are continuing to monitor any news right here on Right Side Broadcasting Network. We are also seeing the latest report from Disclose.tv is still the Iranians coordinating the attacks on the U.S. Air Base in Qatar with Qatari officials. So looks like the best account right now is the one that we were just watching right there here on Right Side, as we continue to bring you live coverage from the Middle East, but also from the White House. We know that the president is in the Situation Room right now, meeting with the national security team in regards to what just happened moments ago in Iran. We see that exactly what I just said is right there, so let's go to it. I'm going to read that specifically here in just a second as we continue our live coverage on Right Side. So according to the New York Times, Iran coordinated the missile attack. Now, that's not the same quote that I'm looking at, so I'm going to double check where this one is. There it is right there. Okay. U.S. President Trump is monitoring potential Iranian retaliation against multiple U.S. bases in the region, in addition to Qatar, including Bahrain and Iraq, and possibly more locations, according to 2 White House officials who spoke with CNN. Okay, so let's look at this again. I want to read this a little slower and understand what's happening here. It says that U.S. President Trump, our president, of course, is monitoring potential Iranian retaliation, okay, against multiple U.S. bases in the region. Okay, so we know in addition to Qatar the Bahrain base, the Iraq base, which I'm sure there are more than one in each of these countries, but still, and possibly more locations. So right now, this is according to White House officials speaking with the media there. Trump is monitoring imminent threats against multiple U.S. bases in the Middle East. So this is pretty specific here, because we saw that President Trump said that if there is any retaliation by Iran against the United States of America, President Trump said this just the other day. He said, if there's any retaliation by Iran against the United States of America, it will be met with force far greater than what was witnessed on Saturday. So we will see if there's anything that happens from our country or our bases back to Iran in this situation, especially if Iran decides to go past Qatar and continues to maybe reportedly attack any other bases in the Middle East. And this is all on the heels of specifically the Department of Homeland Security saying, hey, even in the homeland right now, we have to keep our guard up. We have to keep an eye out on anything going on, just specifically within our country when it comes to any of the sleeper cells or any kind of dirty bomb situation. I mean, this is stuff that, of course, I don't want to talk about. I don't want to have to be like, doing any kind of fear tactic, but it's not a fear tactic. That's not how I roll. How I roll is these are honest things that could possibly happen. So that, not according to me and not according to Right Side, but according to the Department of Homeland Security, who put up a bulletin before. Director, can we put up that bulletin if you can, maybe on a 4-box? I'm not sure how to do it, but there's a Department of Homeland Security bulletin for the homeland as well that was put out just yesterday. The State Department also put out a worldwide caution for travel. So we know that all systems are running in the sense of we know that the Department of State is on it, the Department of Homeland Security monitoring our country, and also when you look at the Middle East, we know that our U.S. bases, I was seeing reports that already were evacuated, or some other specifics that we're hearing is that this attack happened at our Qatari base, our United States base there. And at this point, we're hearing no injuries at this hour. So again, we're monitoring the latest here on Right Side, including from the White House, where President Trump is in the Situation Room. This meeting was supposed to be at 1 o'clock Eastern, even before the breaking news happened. It actually was around 12:44 when we received the news, but at 1 o'clock before everything happened, there was a scheduled meeting in the Oval Office for a national security team meeting. Well, now we know the president has went from the office down to the Situation Room to monitor what's going on there. Seeing here, a defense official confirms Al-Udeid was attacked by short and medium ranged missiles. No reports of casualties now. A U.S. official also said the attack ended 30 minutes ago. They couldn't confirm reports of attacks on other bases like Iraq. So that from a man there. Guys, can you see the name from here? I cannot see the name, so I can cite the person correctly. Is it Konstantin Toropin, I think I see. But anyway, so yeah, we're monitoring what different sources are saying out there. One thing we don't do is if someone isn't part of, whether it's a news agency or someone that is really focused in on the kinds of reporting we're doing, we're not just going to rattle off just random reports. Again, OSINT Defender is an open source intelligence monitor focused on Europe and conflicts across the world. So that's partly what we do as well as we continue to monitor what's going on right now. So let me go to X as well, and I'll go to Truth Social here and just double check that the president hasn't, I believe he wouldn't be saying anything at this point because it's really on the heels of breaking news right now. So let's go to Truth Social. Okay, I don't see anything other than Axios reporting that the Trump administration was aware of the Iranian attack in advance. So Charlie Kirk reported that a minute ago, that Axios is reporting that the Trump administration was aware of the Iranian attack in advance. So this is why we can now know that at 1 o'clock Eastern time, there was already a scheduled national security team meeting in the Oval Office. Well, it's now in the Situation Room. So that's the latest that we're seeing. On top of that, breaking 911, reporting of various things. We'll get to them in a second. Breaking news from open source intel. Tehran air defenses have been activated. Bahrain has now also closed its airspace. We reported that earlier. Gateway pundit saying Qatar confirms interception of all Iranian missiles at Al Udeid base. No U.S. casualties reported. OSINT defender. Iraqi officials deny reports about a drone or missile attack by Iran against U.S. forces at Al-Assad Air Base in western Iraq during the attack on Al Udeid Air Base in Qatar. So Iraqi officials saying they're denying any reports of any drone or missile attack by Iran in our country as well. So when I say our country, I meant our U.S. bases in Iraq. All right, so we're looking at this on the fly right now. This is what you call live breaking news, man. I'll tell you, this is something to see all the developments happening right now. We're looking at Iran informed the United States via 2 diplomatic channels hours ahead of the attacks on Qatar. That, according to Reuters, and contributed by Conflict Radar. Iraq has closed their airspace. We're seeing breaking 911 as well. Let's see what they're reporting at this hour. Right now, Iran says the missile barrage on Qatar was the same number of bombs used by the U.S. on its nuclear sites, signaling a likely desire to de-escalate, according to the AP. We know that President Trump is in the Situation Room. We know that he had a meeting already scheduled for 1 o'clock in the Oval Office with the national security team, but that has now shifted over, of course, to the Situation Room, as we know that Iran has fired missiles to our U.S. base in Qatar. There are a lot of airspace around the Middle East being closed down right now. A lot of sirens going on in the Middle East right now. At this hour, it's 12:54 on the East Coast. We do know in Jerusalem, it's 8:54 p.m. The same for Riyadh. The same for, when I say Riyadh, I'm only including Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, just for a time reference point. In Tehran, it's 9:25 at night, and in Jerusalem, it's 8:55 at night there. As this is interesting because we know that Israelis have been airstriking Tehran and Iran, of course, have been airstriking Israel. And for 1 second, we thought, well, maybe they'll just go do that because Iran knows that if they mess with the United States, we know how that would end. And that, according to the president, saying just the other day, just to reiterate the facts, he said any retaliation by Iran against the United States of America will be met by force, with force far greater than what was witnessed on Saturday night. That's President Trump on Truth Social just the other day. And we were wondering, is this going to happen? Well, we know that this airstrike has happened, of course, and has hit or has been intercepted over the skies of the Middle East. And there was conflicting reports, and some that are saying that have hit the base and some say it hasn't. But we do know that the reports are not conflicting, or that there have been no injuries reported. As we see what will happen next. Is this just the beginning of a few attacks? Is this a few airstrikes and that's it? And just so-called leveling the playing field, according to the report from the New York Times that I saw earlier, not from an op-ed, but more from the situation that happened in 2020, where there was a retaliatory hit back to a base in Iraq in 2020, but then there was nothing else escalated. So I'm going to look for that report again if I could find that. But there's just a lot going on right now, as you know. As we see right there on the bottom of your screen, President Trump monitoring the Iranian retaliation, which is exactly what's happening. I mean, if that's to sum it up, that's what's happening. We know that Iran has fired missiles to the Qatar base in Iran. So Iran has fired two in Qatar. Excuse me. All right, so it's the bottom of the hour. Right now, what we'll do is we're going to take a break, and we'll come back here in just a second. Let's go with, before we continue on, of course, we wouldn't be able to do this live broadcast without a number of our sponsors, and that's just something we have to do, of course. You see Kalshi right now. Iran launched 6 missiles towards the U.S. bases in Qatar. Explosions heard per Axios and Reuters. Odds of a nuclear deal, just 32%. So that's on Kalshi.com. You can do that /RSBN and check it out there. One of our sponsors here, as you see. People, they bet and trade on anything, it looks like, and including this. So you can go there if you'd like to check out what's going on Kalshi.com /RSBN, as it's 1:58 Monday, June 23rd, right here on Right Side Broadcasting Network. Again, President Trump saying just the other day, any retaliation by Iran against the United States of America will be met with force far greater than what was witnessed on Saturday. And also, I'm going to try and find this report from the New York Times just a minute ago that really broke it down a little bit. Now listen, when it comes to the New York Times, yes, a lot of it is fake news, especially in opinion editorial. However, when there's breaking news and specifics, sometimes there are outlets that report what's actually happening, sometimes. So we take this with a grain of salt. However, we do know that this is a breaking news situation, and we're monitoring the developments here on Right Side right now, as Iran said it launched an attack on the Al Udeid Air Base, an American base in Qatar. It's the largest U.S. military post in the Middle East, according to its state media. So we're monitoring all of that right now here on Right Side as we continue to see if President Trump, what he will do or not do with this situation. Again, there's sometimes, back in 2020, there was a strike from the Iranians as we killed one of the generals, one of the Iranian generals. So they struck an Iraq base there that had our American forces there. They were evacuated, but it was still a retaliation, just one airstrike, and then they backed off. Paraphrasing that from some of the information that I just read from the Times. As we see some video there from OSINT Defender. I'm going to go back to that as well, as we are covering this live right now on Right Side. The airspace in the Middle East, Iran, Iraq, Syria, Kuwait, Jordan, all clear. No airplanes flying to, of course, Tehran, nothing to Kuwait, nothing to Baghdad, nothing to Damascus, nothing in the Middle East right now. Of course, nothing in Israel, nothing in Tel Aviv. We're seeing that from Breaking 911, the map currently. Let's go back to OSINT Defender. The video you're looking at right now, footage posted by an Iranian state-run media outlet, claimed to show the launch of ballistic missiles tonight. Again, it's about 8 to 9 o'clock, depending on which part of the Middle East you're in tonight. And they say that against the U.S. Al Udeid Air Base in Qatar as part of Operation Basharat al-Fath. So we're seeing that from OSINT Defender right now on Right Side Broadcasting Network. Also, 4 minutes ago, several U.S. defense officials have confirmed that the United States forces at the Al Udeid Air Base in Qatar were attacked earlier with short-range and medium-range ballistic missiles fired from Iran, with no reports so far of any casualties to U.S. service members stationed in Qatar or the Middle East. So that happening right now, 4 minutes ago, 5 minutes ago now. We're hearing that through OSINT Defender. Now, you may ask, well, why are you referring to just them? Well, we're looking at various reports, whether it's Axios, Reuters, different agencies that have a global reach, bureaus in Jerusalem, Moscow, London, Beijing, wherever, Sydney. But also, we know that President Trump just the other day used a screenshot from a similar account to this that said simply, "Fordow is gone." And if you just scroll back on President Trump's Truth Social page, and we've used this social outlet before on X, so and obviously giving them full credit, repeating the name, you see the name there. We're seeing, obviously, that picture on the bottom right, I believe, is from, and if correct me if I'm wrong, that's when President Trump was in Qatar visiting our U.S. troops, our U.S. service members. Says peace through strength in the background there. We had that live coverage here, and I believe it was at the Al Udeid Air Base there, that specific speech. So quite interesting that that's the base that was hit. According to several U.S. defense officials, have confirmed that U.S. forces at that base in Qatar were attacked earlier with short-range and medium-range ballistic missiles fired from Iran. No reports of casualties, no reports of injuries. Now, here's the thing. Will this escalate, or is this it? That's what we're all asking. At least that's what I'm asking. And many are saying, okay, and this is, when I say many, let me back up from even that. A general statement. You would think, common sense, people would say, well, let's light them up. Look what they just did to us. Some common sense people would say, no, that's it. They just did it back. That was their retaliatory thing. It's over. Let's not escalate this thing. Who knows what the president's going to do? But he did say the other day specifically, and I keep referring to this quote because that's what he said, any retaliation by Iran against the United States of America will be met with force far greater than what was witnessed on Saturday night. President Trump said that on Truth Social. So was that a chess move? Was that the negotiator-in-chief speaking? Or is that really going to happen? Because Iran retaliated, and the president said what he said, that if there's any retaliation from Iran, the USA will be, this country, Iran, will be met with force far greater than what was witnessed on Saturday night. Of course, remember those B-2 bombers with those 14 bunker busters, the submarines with the 30 Tomahawk missiles that President Trump was talking about on Truth Social earlier. So a lot going on at 2:04 Eastern time. All right, so let's do this. Let's take a quick commercial break. We'll be right back here on Right Side Broadcasting Network as we continue to monitor this breaking news from the Middle East.
Welcome to Right Side Broadcasting Network, your trusted conservative news outlet. At RSBN, we deliver the truth when the mainstream media falls short. Since 2015, we've proudly broadcasted every single one of President Trump's iconic MAGA rallies, bringing you the excitement and energy live before anyone else. By watching RSBN, you get an unfiltered front row view of the action on the ground. We interview the crowds to give a voice to millions of Americans just like you. We show you President Trump's speeches in their entirety, free from interruptions and censorship. We cover the stories that matter to you with the integrity and passion you deserve. Thank you for choosing RSBN as your home for America First news. Together, we stand strong, united, and informed. So join us and be part of the right side of history.
Hey y'all, it's Silk from the Diamond and Silk Chit Chat live show. Look, don't forget to check me out right here on RSBN Network. Be sure to watch the show on Right Side Broadcasting Network, and I want you to support Right Side Broadcasting Network. Yes, it's imperative that you do so, okay? I look to see y'all soon. Bye-bye.
To celebrate our newest launch, Rev 7, I'm bringing you an amazing introductory offer, plus an exclusive overstock sale that you're not going to want to miss. Rev 7 is our premium energy drink that tastes great and gives you energy all day with no jitters and no crashes. That's because there's no sugar and no caffeine. I'm so sure you're going to love Rev 7 that for a limited time you can try our 3-pack absolutely free. Or check out our Percale bed sheets. I can't believe I'm even going to say this. Every color, every style, every size, only $29.88. So go to mypillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to save 20% on our Rev 7 12-packs or try our introductory 3-pack absolutely free. And our Percale bed sheets, all sizes, only $29.88, even the queens and kings. Inventory is extremely limited, so order now.
Good afternoon. I'm Robert McNeely with RSBN Live. We are monitoring everything taking place in Iran. The retaliation apparently towards Qatari air bases, actually United States air bases within the nation of Qatar. And thank you for being with us as Matthew Alvarez doing some extraordinary coverage this afternoon and earlier this morning, covering everything going on in the United States. We see there on the split screen, according to OSINT Defender, that several U.S. defense officials have confirmed that U.S. forces at the Al Udeid Air Force Base in Qatar were attacked earlier with short-range and medium-range ballistic missiles fired upon from Iran. With no reports so far of any casualties in U.S. service members stationed in Qatar in the Middle East. Kuwait and Iraq have joined Bahrain and the UAE and Qatar in closing their airspace following the Iranian ballistic missile attack earlier against the U.S. Al Udeid Air Force Base. So, and this is in Qatar once again. Also, we are looking to see any of those other reports that might break exactly what is happening in the Middle East. So our friends, our prayers with our military, of course, with our allies in the region. We know that President Trump recently was in the Gulf states of UAE, also Saudi Arabia and Qatar, dealing with not only trading and $6 trillion that came to the United States through the use of sale in AI and also tech and military equipment, but also, of course, this topic of the Iranian bully in the Middle East. Lots happening over the course of the weekend. And in case you missed it, which would be hard to miss what took place on Saturday, B-2 bombers, 18 hours in the air to their target from Missouri, taking out nuclear sites within Iran, and then also followed by Tomahawk missiles, taking out 3 sites. President Trump, along with Vice President Vance, Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth, and Secretary of State Marco Rubio, the National Security Team, reporting on that live Saturday evening. That was followed by a Sunday morning press conference with Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth, as well as General Dan Kane, Raisin Kane, as President Trump calls him, calling him a real general. Not one of the TV generals that you saw in the past, but someone who is doing an extraordinary job as chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, running this government extraordinarily well from a military operational perspective with the civilian leadership of President Donald Trump. So we are monitoring everything taking place with the Iranian retaliation that was targeting U.S. bases within Qatar. So we'll stay on this for you at nearly 2:10 Eastern at Right Side Broadcasting Network Live. And this has been really a developing thing over the course of the last couple of days and several hours. I actually had the opportunity to go back and look at Top Gun Maverick and watch Argo over the weekend. 2 films that might relate to what's happening here. Of course, Top Gun Maverick being the sequel to that great film in the 1980s and really showcasing from a Hollywood perspective what's taking place in this world militarily. Really an unidentified opponent in that film, but those next-gen fighters. If you remember President Trump rolling out that technology of the Generation 7 fighters that are now operational, we know, in the United States. And Iran did not see the B-2 bombers going into their country. I mean, it really was a monumental feat, militarily speaking, and Secretary Hegseth speaking on this on Sunday morning specifically, that in and of itself is really unheard of, that a country did not even see what we did. So even before they really knew, those sites were struck. And God bless our military, God bless our commander-in-chief and all those generals and Pentagon officials going through all these crucial decisions. And as you see there, that was Secretary Hegseth split screen that photo from the Gulf region when President Trump made that trip with troops stationed overseas. God be with our troops, because they matter first and foremost in all of this. And if you've seen that movie, that sequel, Top Gun Maverick, it's really a good one because you get an idea of what's happening in today's military. Now, breaking from open source intel, Saudi Arabia strongly condemns Iran's attack on Qatar, calling it a blatant breach of international law and the principles of good neighborliness and an unjustifiable act under any circumstance. So Good to see our friends and allies in the region condemning the bully of the Middle East. If you go back 40 or 50 years here to the 1979 revolution, when the Shah was overthrown by an Islamic revolutionary theocratic mindset, Al-Khamenei and those leaders around him, really an extreme ideology focused on total rule and a monarchy that really puts Islamic law into movement. I mean, you have no freedom there. And there is no freedom of choice. There's discrimination against Christians, the Jewish people, and we've seen this for years and years now, that it's death to America, death to Israel, what the Iranians have called for. And it's sad to see a day where it comes to this, but President Trump being consistent for years and years on this, that Iran cannot have the bomb. And it dates back to when he came down the golden escalator with First Lady Melania Trump, making it known where he stands on that they cannot obtain that. And it's been on countless occasions where he said that, dating back to 2015 and even before. So if you're just tuning in now, it's nearly 2:15 on the East Coast. Good afternoon. And on the Golden Coast of California, that west coast of ours, still morning. So good morning to you tuning in now. This has been President Trump's message from day one of peace through strength. And that exact airbase that he visited just recently under attack from the Iranians. But it seems as if what's being reported now, that interceptor missiles were able to take care of that, watch over it. And it looks as if no casualties at the moment. We'll stay on that for all of that breaking news and information coming into us real time here from the White House, also from different communication sources that we discussed with. And President Trump there on True Social saying the sites that we hit in Iran were totally destroyed. This was Saturday evening, our time, Sunday morning in Iran, and everyone knows it. Only the fake news would say something or anything different in order to try and demean as much as possible. And even they say that we're pretty well destroyed. Working especially hard on this falsehood is Allison Cooper of Fake News CNN, Dumb Brian L. Roberts, chairman of Comcast, Johnny Carl of ABC Fake News, and always the losers of, again, Comcast, NBC, Fake News. It never ends with the sleaze bags in the media, and that's why their ratings are at an all-time low. Zero credibility, and we have to echo that here. Yes, we agree with President Trump in that. That's why we exist as the anti-legacy media. We give it to you real time as a real live desk so that you can make up your minds and make up that decision for yourselves. So that's why we bring everything we do here on a daily basis for you, to bring you real news, because sadly, that's just not the fact for some in the legacy media saying things like, oh, it just was an okay strike. No, it was devastating for the nuclear program in Iran. And now, as we see from OSINT Defender, the Trump administration was anticipating Tehran would retaliate after strikes by the United States Air Force on the Iranian nuclear sites over the weekend, and the president does not want more military engagement in the Middle East. A senior White House official told that to CNN. No, the official added that President Trump is willing to escalate U.S. military involvement if necessary, and is currently meeting with senior defense officials in the Situation Room. So that's been something that was even on the press guidance for today, that President Trump wanted to and have that meeting today at 1 o'clock Eastern. So that was planned and scheduled regardless. And he did say that on Saturday night that it would be much easier to strike sites after what took place on Saturday night in the United States, early Sunday morning in Iran, with this attack that struck these nuclear sites. So we are keeping our tabs on this and watching all of this. So we'd like to thank our sponsors here on the right side of history, All Family Pharmacy. What no better time than to watch out for your health with scary times in the world, scary times with natural storms that can knock out a pharmacy or knock out your electricity. and look at everything that's happening in the Middle East. So let's restock those medicine cabinets. There's also a COVID variant that's out there that ivermectin, hydrochloroquine, methylene blue, mebendazole, and NAD Plus can look after, as well as 200 essential medications, antibiotics, and emergency medical kits that can protect you by paying less for prescription medication. So allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN. Use code RSBN20. That's 20% off today if you scan the QR code now or visit that big, bold, beautiful website, allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN. They will protect your essential health and have that medicine cabinet filled, something you can't mess around with in 2025. Now through June 30th, code RSBN20, 20% off for ivermectin, hydrochloroquine, mebendazole, methylene blue, and also NAD Plus, among those other 200 essential medications. Do not delay. allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN. And Colonial Metals Group, thank you for sponsoring us, whether it's the Iranian Revolutionary Guard and all the antics they've caused over the course of the last 40 to 50 years in American foreign policy, or the Chinese Communist Party that wants an economic Pearl Harbor for the United States. Colonial Metals Group can protect you, your IRA, your 401k with gold. 100% tax-free. Scan the QR code now. freegoldguide.com/RSBN. Everything you need for tax-free gold in your pocket. And right now, you can receive $7,500 on the house in silver. $7,500 on the house is great anytime, but imagine that in tangible silver. A great go-to. And the U.S. Attorney, Judge Janine Pirro, a huge fan of Colonial Metals Group. So do not delay. Reach out today, freegoldguide.com/RSBN. Scan the QR code now and look at all of those options with a no-obligation guide to gold and silver. As we watch everything developing at that big, beautiful White House, and although these are scary times, they bring about fear, they bring about wonderment, and all of the things that can come with this. We have those big flags standing tall outside of our White House, and proudly, as President Trump was just at that air base in Qatar that was attacked by Iran, it looks as if, though, their missile defense system, their Golden Dome, if you will, able to protect all of that. And President Trump working overtime here, along with his national security team, wanting everyone to know Iran's nuclear sites were totally destroyed. They were decimated on Saturday night in the United States, Sunday morning for the rest of the Middle East. And it was a special moment. I was actually spending some time with friends, and I asked the restaurant to turn on what was happening in that moment. They did, and we watched as President Trump, Vice President Vance, Secretary Hegseth, and Secretary Rubio all approached the podium. And it's something that you usually never forget when you're out in public, enjoying a lovely evening with friends or family, and something as significant as this happened. It was somewhat anticipated. We know it was in the 2 weeks of President Trump saying that there would be action taken potentially after the Israeli strikes, and that 2 days after saying that by White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt, it happened. So was it within that 2-week window leading to that July 3rd possibility? President Trump has been very consistent on this and has always been clear that Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. He never wanted them to have it. He never wavered in his stance. So for those saying that he somehow is going against the peace through strength or going against no new wars, he's been very consistent on this pledge made repeatedly, both in office and on the campaign trail, that he's clearly stated no fewer than 15 times that Iran cannot be allowed to have a nuclear weapon. So going back to June 17th, Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. It's very simple. You don't have to go too deep into it. They just can't have a nuclear weapon. Back to the day before, June 16th, I want to see no nuclear weapon in Iran. And we're well on our way to making sure that happens. June 14th, you can't have peace if Iran has a nuclear weapon. So very clear on these statements, going back the last couple of weeks, and then dating back to the campaign trail. This is nearly 40 times this pledge came out in 2024. Iran can't have a nuclear weapon. Nuclear weapons are the greatest single threat to our country, but to the entire world. This is November 3rd, 2024, right before Election Day on November 5th. I would have been very good to Iran. They and I have had one thing: no nuclear weapons. You can't have a nuclear weapon. Nuclear weapons are the greatest danger to our country going forward and to the world going forward. That was on October 29th of last year. All I wanted to do was make sure Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. This is the day before, on October 28th. You can't have a nuclear weapon. So let's go back to even August 15th of 2024. They can't have a nuclear weapon. And we were all set to make sure that they don't have a nuclear weapon, because once they do, it's a whole different world. It's a whole different negotiation. So perhaps that quote really leading into what took place in the Situation Room over the course of the last 50 hours or so. President Trump making that very clear with the Iranian government, but they continue to do what they were doing with the centrifuges, with spinning uranium, trying to obtain this weapon. We saw in the initial attack from Israel, 12 planes going in there, the fissile material that did explode, or at least what we saw by the naked eye, went up in somewhat of a mushroom cloud. So the Iranians had reached somewhat of this technology. Is it clear exactly what that was? We're still watching all of that, but they were in control or held some form of weapon of mass destruction. And they continued with their threats of Iran saying to the United States that we're the great Satan. This is dating back to years and years ago, when they've been ramping up this rhetoric over the course of a number of years. Now it's somewhat different, because although they've advanced in their technologies, refusing inspectors to come in, whether that be from the UN or the United States or Israel, we know they've lost their grip on the region. Bashar al-Assad next door in Syria, losing his power, exiling his nation, and that was really seen as a puppet nation of Iran and the Iranian Revolutionary Guard and their Republican army. But over the course of nearly 2 decades now, Iran really losing that influence. And we see, based on OSINT Defender on X, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia condemns the ballistic missile attack tonight by Iran against Al Udeid Air Force Base in Qatar, stating that it is a flagrant violation of international law and the principles of good neighborliness, and an entirely unacceptable act that cannot be justified under any circumstances, aiding that Saudi Arabia affirms its full support for Qatar. And that could not have been an even better timing for President Trump's foreign trip roughly a month ago with the Gulf states. And now Fox News chief foreign correspondent is saying Israeli jets are currently striking Iran. That's according to their outlet there. It's a very fluid motion happening with the breaking news, and the fact that this could be a back and forth, hopefully not a tit for tat, but war is an ugly thing. And in this day and age, with all of these technologies, it can move extraordinarily swiftly. So we're bringing you all of the breaking news, everything that's happening within the Middle East right now. And President Trump has remained committed that if the Iranians were to strike back against our interests, it's been made very clear as well by Secretary of State Marco Rubio, if any of that's going to take place over the course of the next several hours, the next several days, weeks, and months, that the Iranians would be hit back by the United States, and it would be rather easy, as President Trump put it on Saturday night to that 10 o'clock Eastern press conference to the American people of what had just taken place with the strikes in Iran targeting the nuclear facilities, not the people of Iran. This administration's been very clear about that. There's no desire to start a new war, that peace can start immediately with the Iranian government stopping their pursuit of a nuclear weapon, because it's very clear to understand they've proven over the last 4 to 5 decades that they seek destruction. They don't believe in mutually assured destruction. They believe in complete annihilation of the West, of the American people, of the Israeli people, and we know how much they hold this hatred of the Jewish people in their hearts. And it's really something in the leadership. I think it's more of a mix within the people of Iran. That's roughly a nation of 92 million people. But our thoughts and prayers with our military, with our allies in the region, and our prayers for peace coming from everywhere throughout this land. We pray that everyone is asking God to solve this problem, solve this issue, and President Trump being that leader that does thank God on a daily basis, thanking God in that moment for the success in our military and what is to come. Thank you to our sponsors here on the right side of history, angelpaste.com. Experience that miracle today out of the Lone Star State of Texas. They have this miracle cream. You've seen me try it here on the network. It's vitamin B infused, non-GMO, no chemicals, and it is great for your skin. Leaves it glowing. They also have an orange option. The vitamin C infused, non-GMO, no chemicals in that as well. And a few other great items, including a natural mosquito repellent, also a beautiful facial spray for guys and gals, so you can go paint the town red this summer. Experience the miracle today. Angelpaste.com out of Spring, Texas, the Lone Star State. And they are Christian owned. They love our military and they hire veterans. So highly recommend this group, angelpaste.com. And while you're at it, taking care of your skin and taking care of your everyday outings, how about grab that memorabilia unlike any other, the Trump plane. I have one of these myself. It's from patriotaddictdeals.com. Looks great in the MAGA man cave, looks great on that desk. And if you have to bring in that employee who is just creating a hostile work environment, he'll know that Trump Force plane is looking right back at him and that you mean business. So get that now. Claim your 20% off by using code RSBN20. Trump Force One airplane, that replica of that big, beautiful plane that is just resting up in PBI, Palm Beach International, and an extraordinarily beautiful item, a piece of history that took President Trump from sea to shining sea in order to be reelected to the highest office in the land. patriotaddictdeals.com. And it's a limited one. Once these are gone, it's off the shelves for 3 to 4, maybe 5 months. When I got mine, this didn't come back for nearly that amount of time. So Trump Force One airplane, patriotaddictdeals.com. And we are watching in real time everything happening with the situation in the Middle East. The U.S. State Department has released an updated travel alert now for Kuwait, stating that due to the ongoing conflict between Israel and Iran, and out of an abundance of caution, the United States Embassy has advised its personnel to exercise increased vigilance and has instructed mission personnel to comply with temporary restrictions imposed by the United States military on access to the Camp Arvjan, Camp Bahrain, also the Ali Al-Salim Air Base, and Camp Patriot. Access to those facilities is limited to essential personnel only at this time. So this is all in response to what took place earlier today with President Trump being in the national security outlet with his team in the Situation Room at the White House, watching that, monitoring all of that, as we've had a response by the Iranian government, their military attempting to strike Qatar at that very base Secretary Hegseth was at weeks ago, as well as President Trump addressing those troops in Qatar stationed overseas in the Gulf states, and Saudi Arabia condemning this in the utmost of ways along with Qatar. and the UAE as well. President Trump visiting those countries recently, bringing back $6 trillion in military equipment sales, also work with AI and tech, as well as other ways our countries can work together for peace. Now, Dmitry Medvedev, this is the former president of Russia, who President Trump has strongly condemned in his egregious comments just recently. The deputy chairman of Russia's Security Council now, the former Russian president, responded to President Trump. Regarding President Trump's concerns, I condemn the U.S. strike on Iran. It failed to achieve its objectives. However, Russia has no intention of supplying nuclear weapons to Iran because, unlike Israel, we are parties to the nuclear non-proliferation treaty. I know quite well what this would entail, having overseen our nuclear forces as president, but other countries might, and that's what was said. And we definitely should not be arguing over who has more nukes. All the more so because the New START treaty, which I also signed with the U.S. president, is still in force for now. The question is, what comes next? So those are some good words from Dmitry Medvedev. As you can remember him, if you're thinking in your head a few years ago, he was president when, talk about Russian collusion, Obama got caught on that hot mic saying, I'll have more flexibility after the election. And then Dmitry Medvedev said, I will transmit this to Vladimir. So that was Vladimir Putin at the time, who really always has been the leader of this nation. Over the course of the last 25 years, Dmitry Medvedev, a puppet of sorts, but good to hear that he will not be sending nukes into Iran, at least promises made. We'll see if they're kept. With the non-proliferation treaty taking place there. We'll watch all of that because earlier there was a report and discussion that the Russian government might be moving to put nukes into Iran as a front. Basically, the bottom line of all of this is we can thank Barack Hussein Obama, we can thank the auto pen for their weakness and giving all of that billions and billions of dollars appeasing the Iranians. They really are what took place with Great Britain prior to World War II with Neville Chamberlain and the appeasement of Nazi Germany. It's a very similar situation here. The Iranians you could look at as the Japanese war class. They do not believe in mutually assured destruction. They believe in all-out total war and victory to defeat the infidel. It's a theocratic institution. That's what they believe. They believe it's Shia Islam or nothing else. It's a radical, warped ideology, so they can't even understand the concept of democracy, the concept of constitutional republicanism, of law and order, that all are equal under God. It doesn't work for the Iranian rulers. Now, U.S. officials confirm to Reuters, according to OSINT Defender on X, that none of the ballistic missiles fired tonight by Iran impacted inside of that Air Force base in Qatar, the Al Udeid Air Force Base that President Trump and Secretary Hegseth were at recently addressing the troops. Also, from the same group, the U.S. State Department has released an updated travel alert now for Kuwait, stating that due to the ongoing conflict between Israel and Iran, and out of an abundance of caution, the U.S. Embassy has advised its personnel to exercise increased vigilance and has instructed that only specific personnel remain at that bases. So if you are traveling right now as an American near or around this region, very important to stay posted and focused on those travel warnings coming out from the U.S. State Department, also from your local embassy. And it, in a sense, gives me goosebumps because I watched Argo over the weekend. Once again, a great film, an all-star cast about 6 Americans who, with the help of the Canadian government and the embassy, got out of Iran during the beginning of the Islamic Revolution in 1989, ultimately leading to the release of 444 hostages when the American embassy was taken over during the Carter administration, going into Ronald Reagan's swearing in of his first inaugural. So that was an amazing story, something amazing to remember, and something for all Americans to watch, regardless of where you stand on this issue, because Many of us weren't around during that time, and it's good to reflect on that history that's now led to this moment, because you can argue that for years and years, the Iranians, through the Houthis, through the Hamas and Hezbollah, and all of the radical Shia Islamic terrorists, whether in the form of ISIS, Al-Qaeda, and all of these other different groups, have been maiming the arms, the legs, the very well-being of American personnel and Israelis for countless generations now. They had this coming. It was very clear that President Trump stated no nuclear weapon for Iran. And they were in countless violations of the inspectors, whether it be from the UN, whether it be from the United States or Israel. And God be with our military and our allies in the region. And we pray for this to come to a swift and quick conclusion. Thank you to our sponsors on the right side of history at the RSBN Live Desk, Tax Network USA, tnusa.com/RSBN. Let's settle those back taxes now, whether you missed the April 15th deadline or are preparing for a big drop come April 15th of next year. Even if you're a business owner and your books are just out of whack, or it's been a stressful period of time in sales, call 800-357-1415. Do not delay. Our Patriot experts and wonderful people who believe in what we believe in, they're all here at tnusa.com/RSBN for you. So protect yourself from the IRS. Settle those back taxes now. Visit tnusa.com/RSBN. Call today. Don't delay. 800-357-1415. When you have all of those beautiful taxes settled and the IRS off your back, make sure to reach out to this great group to restock your medicine cabinet. We know there's a COVID variant that's out there. We know everything going on in the Middle East right now. It's a tough world, whether it's a natural disaster or man-made war and threats. So allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN, the online pharmacy focused on protecting you and yours, with code RSBN20, RSBN20. Now through June 30th, scan the QR code today right there on the screen, or go to allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN, whether it's hydrochloroquine, ivermectin, methylene blue, mebendazole, NAD+, or those 200 essential medications to protect you and yours. There's also emergency medical kits. So something good to have on the go or in your medicine cabinet. allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN. Pay less for those prescription medications, 20% off now. RSBN20, that's the code. President Trump signing that executive order recently to bring down the cost of prescription medications. So it makes sense to visit allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN. Thank you for sponsoring us on the right side of history. We're watching everything from countless different sources today, including open source intel that Reuters has said senior Iran officials, Iran has the necessary rationality to begin diplomacy after punishing the aggressor. And I always find that hysterical. I think they need a new communications director in Iran. Now just in, an Iranian official tells Reuters Iran will keep responding to U.S. strikes. Talks can only begin once Israeli and American attacks stop. Well, President Trump was very clear the other day. If the Iranians retaliate, the United States will do so. We have yet to see any of that in any other retaliatory strikes. But we just see that as Saudi Arabia condemns Iran's attacks on U.S. airbase in Qatar, that is the only thing that has taken place within the breaking news cycle. An Iranian attack on the United States base within Qatar. President Trump was there recently with Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth to review the troops and say hello. This was part of the big Gulf state tour of Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and UAE, covering all of the big, beautiful $6 trillion coming into the United States with new trade deals, among other discussions, and the Saudis condemning this in the strongest terms. Now, President Trump has been extraordinarily consistent from 2015 about the Iranians not having the ability to obtain the nuclear bomb. Just going back to July of last year, July 10th, 2024, Iran should not have a nuclear weapon. Iran should never be allowed to have a nuclear weapon. Period. Full stop. To June 20th of last year, the main thing is Iran can't have a nuclear weapon. That was the main thing. The deal was a simple deal. Iran can't have a nuclear weapon. You know, it can have a missile, but it can't have a nuclear missile. It cannot have that nuclear capability. And even dating back to January 20th, 2024, exactly 1 year before he took the oath of office for his second term, President Trump saying, I just did not want Iran to have a nuclear weapon. I said, you know, we are going to make a great deal. Everybody's going to be happy. You're going to be rich as hell again. Everything's going to be great. But you cannot have a nuclear weapon. So there's no other way to look at it. President Trump's been extraordinarily consistent on this, and shame on the legacy media that has tried to create another narrative. And it's hard to explain why they would do that, or why Bernie Sanders having a rally on Saturday. I don't know if you saw that video, but the left's screaming out, in case you missed it, we attacked Iran, and then boos, and then President Trump's statement that Bernie Sanders read, and everyone booing, when it was clearly a successful mission and has struck their nuclear capabilities down big time. Now, this is quite great footage. The U.S. Department of Defense releasing this footage earlier, that images showing 7 B-2A Spirit long-range stealth bombers with the 509th Bomb Wing armed with 2 GBU-57A/B massive ordnance penetrator. These are 30,000-pound bunker buster bombs each, departing from Whitman Air Force Base in Missouri on the night of June 20th for strikes against nuclear facilities in Iran as part of Operation Midnight Hammer, one of the greatest names I've ever heard. Additional documentation also shows the return of the bombers to Whitman on June 22nd, following their over 36-hour flight to carry out strikes over Iran. Well done to our pilots who did just that. What a long journey. I can't imagine just being mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually prepared for something quite like that. How do you prepare for leaving Missouri to go strike over Iran and then not to be detected? Well done, men and women of this great United States military. This took countless hours to prepare. This took countless hours of deception and also preparedness. So God be with our military in this very scary nuclear age. And that's some incredible footage right there for you. Only we and the Chinese and the Russians really have this B-2 stealth bomber capability that we know of, and we were able to use it in an extraordinary manner to stop these radical Iranian theocrats who seek nothing but hell for the United States and Israel and for the free world. Don't let Iran have nuclear weapons. That's my only thing I have to tell you today. Don't let them have it. That's October 16th of 2023, coming from President Trump speaking on this exact topic. No nuclear weapons. You can't give Iran nuclear weapons. That was July 15th of 2023, nearly 2 years ago. And now, almost to the date, June 24th, 2 years ago exactly, President Trump saying you cannot let Iran have a nuclear weapon. You cannot let it happen because bad things will happen. And if that happens, Iran will never have a nuclear weapon, period. Dating back to January 6th of 2020. And he said this in 2019, almost the exact same words. Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. 2015, January in that year, over 10 years ago, we can't let Iran have a nuclear weapon. We can't do it. Cannot do it. We cannot let it happen. So that was even before, months before, President Trump came down the golden escalator. And dating back to November 4th of 2011, President Trump saying we can't allow Iran to go nuclear. No ifs, ands, or buts. President Trump has been as consistent on this issue as he has with the economy, dating back to 1987, appearing before once popular talk show hosts like Oprah Winfrey, saying that our country needs someone who knows a thing or two about money. We can't let these other countries continue to manipulate their currency. Same with this issue. We cannot let Iran obtain a nuclear weapon. It's very simple. There are reports now of no deaths or injuries in these missile strikes, and what we're watching is the Iranian retaliation over a U.S. base in Qatar. President Trump and also Secretary Hegseth at recently reviewing the troops. This is the Al Udeid Air Force Base in Qatar. Bahrain states that it affirms full support and solidarity with Qatar following tonight's ballistic missile attack by Iran, and that by Flight Trader 24, with reports closing to Doha near or at capacity or for diversions, Qatar Airways aircraft are now diverting to airports further from home. Now, do yourself a favor, go to these maps in the Middle East and you see just how close all of these countries are within the Persian Gulf, within that entire area near the Black Sea to the east, and throughout the Mediterranean. Everything is right there, and it's a frightening thing to think about if you live, the millions of people who do, in the Middle East, especially if you are Israel, who is surrounded by historically people who were opposed to them, people who did not share their values. But we've seen in recent years, and especially thanks to the leadership of President Trump, the Abraham Accords, the embassy moving from where it was to Jerusalem. Promise made, promise kept. Many other American presidents could not deliver on that for the Jewish people, for the American people. The recognition of the Golan Heights as Israel's. All huge things that really ticked off the Iranian leadership, who has used Hamas and Hezbollah and the Houthi rebels to stop trading, to attack these other nations, to go against even Muslim countries who have dared work with Israel and the United States in order to trade, in order to guarantee prosperity, and to work together with our militaries to bring out and about prosperity for our great nations. So God be with our military, God be with everyone in the region. We must pray for peace, whatever our religious background, and God be with our president as he thanked God Saturday night, and that was Sunday morning for the Middle East, when these successful attacks were carried out, and he was flanked by Vice President J.D. Vance, Secretary of State Marco Rubio, and Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth, who have been working overtime to ensure that the Iranians do not have the capabilities to fire what is the most powerful technology really known to man with these nuclear missiles, and in some cases, hydrogen bombs. These are much stronger than what was dropped back in World War II. As awful as it was with Hiroshima and Nagasaki, it's the only time it's had to be dropped, but the Iranians share something with the Japanese war class of the 40s. There's no negotiation with them. It's total victory or death. Even the Chinese Communist Party, the Russians, they don't believe in mutually assured destruction. They want to avoid that. They care about their populations to a certain extent, not quite like the United States does, but they at least want to survive. This regime is out of its mind, and President Trump has been very clear that they should not obtain the weapon, and it looks as if they were well on their way to that, thanks to the appeasement from Barack Hussein Obama and the auto pen. Thanks be to God that nothing worse happened during their administrations, the billions and billions of dollars being poured into Iran. President Trump exiting that deal and having the backbone to ensure that the Iranian nuclear program did not go 110% active. And Israel led that approach with strikes of 12 airplanes to kick this off roughly a week ago. And we pray for all involved that this resolution can happen swiftly. Thank you to mypillow.com/RSBN. An exclusive sale. President Trump saying that Mike Lindell is that master marketer. So free with any purchase on the website at mypillow.com/RSBN. You will receive with God, all things are possible, the multi-use MyPillow 2.0. Nearly a $40 value. Call today, don't delay. We're in the good old US of A, and thank God for that as we remain vigilant in these questionable, surprising times. 800-836-7566. Make sure you get a good night's rest so you can have a productive day, whether it's just hanging out with family or going to work and getting it done for yours and at home especially. This is one of the greatest things. This is how I get a great night's rest so I can help bring you everything live in real time at RSBN's live desk. Support Mike Lindell and RSBN shopping now at mypillow.com/RSBN. Easy to remember there. Also, Kalshi.com/RSBN. Here's the question of the day. New U.S.-Iran nuclear deal this year. What do you think about that? What are the odds of it? Breaking, we know Iran has launched 6 missiles towards U.S. bases in Qatar. Explosions heard per Axios and Reuters. So what do you think about this? If you really want to go and trade and bet on this, scan that QR code now. Trade on the most important events, and this is the most important thing happening right now. It's up to 42% chance of that occurring. Right now, we'll see what happens. Trade on the most important events, Kalshi.com/RSBN. And we are watching everything for you in real time at RSBN Live Desk to bring you any breaking news regarding what's taking place between the U.S., Iran, Israel, all of the Middle East, and now the Gulf states are involved because Iran has attempted to strike our bases within Qatar, Saudi Arabia, strongly condemning this. Also, Bahrain speaking out against Iran. And now we can watch some footage here. It looks as the Israeli Defense Forces have published footage revealing the aftermath of its strike on Iran's Tayallah headquarters in Tehran earlier today. So we have some footage there from open source intel. And what a time to be alive where you can get this so quickly via social media with everything moving. And that's why it's important to make sure that trust but verify everything you're seeing on your Instagram, on your X, whatever social media site you follow, because you want to be well informed. And that's what we seek to do here at the network, is to bring you everything in real time and to be quick to it, but also to give you appropriate and accurate information so that it does not scare you at home. Some of our legacy counterparts, they don't really care one way or the other. We care deeply about that here at Right Side Broadcasting Network Live. So the latest report, no deaths or injuries in the missile strikes on Qatar. And that really is, it's open war. Even if the Iranians were targeting us in Qatar, they are attacking their Qatari neighbors. Also, the Republic of Yemen, not the Houthis, condemns tonight's ballistic missile attack by Iran against Al Udeid Air Force Base in Qatar. This is according to OSINT Defender. So Yemen, the Republic of Yemen, you can remember the USS Cole from 2000, which you could tie it all back to Iranian terrorist activity back then. They put a hole in the USS Cole, and that was under the Clinton administration. That's where you may remember the country of Yemen condemns tonight's ballistic missile attack by Iran against Al Udeid Air Force Base in Qatar. That's the United States Air Force Base that President Trump was at, also Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth, as they were reviewing the troops just weeks ago during the Gulf state tour of Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and UAE by President Trump. That brought back $6 trillion for the United States. So refreshing to see that Middle East partners really all standing with President Trump and the United States and Israel. Now, the Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas has condemned Iran's missile strike on the United States base in Qatar. That's really incredible breaking news, because if anyone was to condemn or not condemn, it would probably be the Palestinian Authority, who would normally side with the Iranians, who have participated with the Iranians through Hamas and the Houthi rebels and also Hezbollah to strike Israeli targets and interests. So this is incredible breaking news here. According to open source intel, that Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas has condemned Iran's missile strike on the United States Al Udeid Air Force Base in Qatar. So this is my analysis watching this, not as a military expert, but being involved in politics, nonprofits, having an interest in foreign policy. Stand down, Iran, and stand down immediately, or you're likely to face complete obliteration. And that you have brought this upon yourselves with this Iranian nuclear program that has sought to destroy the Western world, to attack America, to attack Israel, and now you have other Muslim countries in the Middle East, whether or not they participate in the Abraham Accords, whether or not they are friendly with the United States, share, in some cases, an ideology with you, but they are clearly saying right now, stop and condemning the attacks. So you have a choice, Iran. If you want to survive, if you want to join the Western world and trade and be a free and independent nation, you have that opportunity, or it looks as if you will go into the ash heaps of history and hell with your insane theocratic mindset. So far, Bahrain, Kuwait, Oman, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Egypt, Morocco, Jordan, Lebanon, Turkey, Yemen, and the Palestinian Authority have all condemned tonight's ballistic missile attack by Iran against Al Udeid Air Force Base in Qatar. The Republic of Yemen, also not the Houthis in all of this, condemns tonight's ballistic missile attack by Iran against the United States, in turn against Qatar, reporting that no deaths or injuries in this missile strike have been reported thus far. We'll keep a watch on this here. As we're nearing the 3 o'clock hour on the East Coast, that's high noon on the Golden Coast. Good afternoon to you. I'm Robert McNeely. If you're just tuning in to RSBN Live Desk, we are covering everything taking place in the Middle East in response to what's really been the last several days and hours, the Israel-led strike against Iran and their institutions. President Trump has said that he was on standby, ready to use the military within 2 weeks, according to Caroline Leavitt. And that came at the end of the week. And he did just that on Saturday, ordering a strike against 3 sites, nuclear sites, against the Iranian theocratic mullahs and Ayatollah. And now it's led to this point of a retaliation hours later by the Iranian military against U.S. Air Force bases in Qatar. So we're watching everything now. But as far as it goes, the neighbors, again, Bahrain, Kuwait, Oman, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Egypt, Morocco, Jordan, Lebanon, Turkey, Yemen, and the Palestinian Authority, that's the one that surprised me the most, have all condemned tonight's ballistic missile attack by Iran against Al Udeid Air Force Base in Qatar. So we're watching all this as our allies are speaking up against the Iranian forces, and perhaps this is now the opportunity for those we have spoken to, including our friend Ali Reza Jafarzadeh, who is working so hard on these issues in Washington, D.C., that he believes, among others, that there are, or is a reform movement by millennials and also Gen Zers within the nation of roughly 92 million people, that they could create upheaval and remove this government. Now, this is all analysis and some speculation regarding that. We haven't seen any reports that that's actually happening against the Ayatollahs and the mullahs in Iran. I'm sure there is a population that does support the theocratic government that exists there, but there allegedly is this freedom movement that has been brewing, according to Iranian experts, and we'll watch for all of that because President Trump's been very clear on that strikes, tactical surgical strikes, would be swift, they'd be smooth, and it's unlike any other operation that's been done, quite frankly, with B-2 bombers leading the charge before Tomahawk missiles went into Iran by the United States to knock out these 3 nuclear sites. And it was devastating against the Iranian nation. Not its people, we love their people, but we do not want the leadership of that country to have nuclear capability, because they've been very clear. They want death to Iran, or death to Israel, death to the United States. They want death to freedom-loving people. and death to all Jews and Christians and those who don't partake in their radical Shia belief system. So we'll watch and monitor all of this for you as Qatar, Saudi Arabia, the UAE, and more Middle East countries condemn Iran's missile attacks against the United States and our Air Force base, our interest within Qatar. President Trump said that on Saturday night with Vice President Vance, with Mr. Rubio, with Mr. Hegseth as well, that if the Iranians were to retaliate, that there would be even swifter strikes, and it would be much easier, and that it would be met with great force as B-2 bombers led this fight just the other night. It was Saturday night in America and Sunday morning in Iran when B-12 bombers entered their airspace, went undetected the entire time, with no reports of any surface-to-air missiles or any firing back by the Iranian military, a successful mission that led to the taking down of the 3 Iranian sites and also the Tomahawk missiles that followed to take out those nuclear facilities to ensure that the Iranian military did not have nuclear capabilities. So we're watching all that live for you here on the right side of history, and we'll bring you any further updates regarding what's taking place with this conflict in the Middle East. In the meantime, President Trump has always been clear that Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. Since taking office, President Trump clearly stated no fewer than 15 times that Iran cannot be allowed to have a nuclear weapon. Also on the campaign trail just last year, President Trump made the same pledge no fewer than 40 times that Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. And the White House releasing those statements and the dates on that specifically. And he has been consistent going back to 2011 of all times, but even before he went down the golden escalator with our First Lady Melania Trump. We can't let Iran have a nuclear weapon. We can't do it, can't do it. We cannot let it happen. That was January 24th of 2015. And going back to 2011, on November 4th, we can't allow Iran to go nuclear. So President Trump being very clear on all of this, as we are getting no reports of casualties from that Air Force base. Now only essential personnel are there to be on the ground for the American people, to defend us, to make sure that that fight that the Iranians want does not come to our shores, does not further come to our friends in Israel as well. This has been a government that's been very clear about taking out, as they put it, the cockroaches, the great Satan. They've had a plethora of names for the United States and Israel, and it's just disgusting to think about. But we are now seeing this from open source intel. Iranian air defenses have been activated in Bukhan, northwestern Iran. The Israeli Air Force will be busy tonight. So our prayers with our friends in Israel, their military, also our United States military, and thank you to our allies in the region who have been very clear. Qatar, Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates, and more Middle East countries condemning Iran's missile attacks that took place in Qatar. But they seem to have a nice, big, beautiful golden dome as well that intercepted many of the missiles that were attempted to strike the Air Force base in Qatar, somewhere where President Trump and Secretary Hegseth were just there, present with our military, with our service members, giving them, cheering them up and rallying them in review. And soon thereafter, we have this taking place. And President Trump's been very consistent that all options are always on the table for this military, but that the use of ground troops, the use of our precious cargo, which is our people, that must always be a last resort in options. But President Trump, of course, always using that as something to be ready, willing, and able on the table. So we're watching all of that in real time, and we'll bring you any breaking news and updates regarding what has taken place in the Middle East. If you're just joining us now, it is roughly 3:07 on the East Coast, and That is just after high noon on the West Coast. I'm Robert McNeely with RSBN Live. We're covering everything going on against our regularly scheduled programming for today for this most important update on the Middle East and everything happening within this hotbed of a region now that we've become all too familiar with the nation building of George W. Bush and going into Iraq. That's not the case here. President Trump simply wanted to make sure that nuclear weapons were not obtained by the Iranians and saw this window as that opportunity following Israeli-led strikes. And he said, according to Caroline Leavitt in the White House press briefing late last week, that President Trump will make a decision as whether or not to go in and strike facilities within 2 weeks. He did that within 2 days, and we know what took place on Saturday and those strikes that took place in Iran, which would have been Sunday morning for them. Also, just reading some breaking news as well that China unveils a mosquito-sized micro drone for battlefield reconnaissance. This matters with all of this because what we're seeing, who may take advantage of what is taking place in the destable areas in the Middle East. And you have to watch people like China and Russia who have cozied up to the Iranian totalitarians. But this is according to Straight Arrow News. China's National University of Defense Technology unveiled a mosquito-sized drone designed for battlefield reconnaissance and covert missions. Its compact flapping wing design allows it to operate discreetly in sensitive environments. Also, advanced engineering, the drone integrates miniaturized power control and sensor systems into a tiny frame. This is enabling surveillance without sacrificing functionality. Wow, we are truly living in the future. It's a global race with countries like us, the United States and Norway, developing similar micro UAVs for military use. Now, according to open source intel and CNN, Trump's Middle East envoy, Steve Witkoff, has continued communications with Iranian officials following the U.S. strikes on Iran's nuclear sites over the weekend. So good to see that there is an open line and chain of communication as Qatar, Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, and more Middle East countries condemn Iran's missile attacks against the United States and Qatar. So this, going back to this full story with the Chinese mosquito-sized drone capabilities that are taking place there, this battlefield surveillance and reconnaissance mission is adding to its expanding portfolio of military micro robots. Researchers at the National University of Defense Technology, otherwise known as NUDT, unveiled the miniature aircraft during a state television broadcast, showcasing its compact design with flapping wings and fine landing legs built for covert operations. What capabilities does this micro drone have? This tiny unmanned aerial vehicle, otherwise known as a UAV, features 2 flapping leaf-shaped wings and 3 hair-thin legs, allowing it to perch or land on various surfaces. Its compact size allows it to perform surveillance, reconnaissance, and special missions on the battlefield, according to NUDT student Liang Hexing, who demonstrated the drone during a CCTV7 military broadcast. That's state-run TV by the Chinese Communist Party. Now, this micro drone apparently integrates power systems, control circuits, and sensors into a compact frame, allowing it to gather information while remaining concealed. So the small scale presents significant engineering challenges requiring the miniaturization of all core components without sacrificing performance. How does it compare to other countries and their programs? China's mosquito-sized drone reflects broader global efforts to develop micro UAVs for military and civilian purposes. The U.S., Norway, and other nations are also pursuing these technologies. So we'll stay on all of this, as that is a somewhat frightening development for the Chinese Communist Party and their antics around the world. what non-military uses exist for micro drones. These systems are advancing rapidly in military contexts, and providing micro robotics research extends into other fields. In fact, Harvard University has a RoboBee project, for example, develop tiny drones capable of flying and landing and even transitioning from water to air. Similar technologies are being studied for applications in medicine, including drug delivery, surgical assistance, diagnostics, and imaging. Environmental monitoring is another potential application for this area. So we'll watch all of this as, again, we are truly living in the future, 2025, with China unveiling this mosquito-sized drone technology that's unmanned. And updates here on the Middle East, according to open source intel, CNN as well. Trump's Middle East envoy, Steve Witkoff, has continued communications with Iranian officials following the U.S. strikes on Iran's nuclear sites over the weekend. And this is all on the heels of Qatar, Saudi Arabia, the UAE, and more Middle East countries condemning Iran's missile attacks against the United States Air Force Base in Qatar. And that base, President Trump was there. Also, Secretary Pete Hegseth reviewing the troops and speaking to them during the Gulf states tour of Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and the UAE. So we're watching all of this right now in real time with you. Amazingly, the stock exchange, the New York Stock Exchange somehow is up during all of this, but it is nearly 3:13 on the East Coast. I believe they will bell out in roughly 45 minutes at the 4 o'clock hour. It's 12:13 on the West Coast. So maybe just temporarily there, according to that scale, dipping down slightly, but going up right now. The Dow Jones Industrial at 42.5 and climbing at the moment. So a bit of a surprise there given the unrest happening in the Middle East. And perhaps the biggest breaking news, the Palestinian Liberation Organization, their leader, Mahmoud Abbas, saying to the world that he condemns Iran's strikes on Qatar. This is someone who has tolerated Hamas, has worked with Hezbollah, the Houthi rebels, in order to bring chaos and fear to the Jewish people, and partially responsible for what took place on October 7th of 2023 with those terrorist attacks way back when. So as we watch all of that here, we will bring you anything breaking on the ground in the Middle East. This Israeli-led strike on Iran roughly a week ago with 12 bombers has led to President Trump also deciding to move in on Iran and knock out their nuclear capabilities. It seems as if that has happened. There were reports that nothing was fired back at United States personnel who flew from Missouri all the way to Iran, an 18-hour trip, to drop these 30,000 plus Buster bunker bombs on the Israeli facilities that they said could never be reached by the Americans, could never be reached by the Israelis. The Iranian extremists were lying about that situation. That was followed by tomahawks. It was literally something out of a movie perhaps similar to Top Gun Maverick, of what you might see, especially if you're not familiar with the military, but these tactical surgical strikes, which technology has been able to provide with us. And Secretary Hegseth and General Raisin Kane, General Dan Kane, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, holding a Sunday morning press conference at the State Department regarding everything that took place and at the Pentagon over the course of the last few hours. President Trump, we know now, is with his national security team, had a regularly scheduled meeting at 1 Eastern in the Situation Room, but that continues as we're getting this breaking news from Qatar, Saudi Arabia, UAE, and more Middle East countries condemning Iran's missile attacks that took place earlier in the day. It's 3:15 Eastern on the East Coast, but it is now nighttime in Iran, in the Middle East, and we are watching all of this and praying for those involved in the situation, that there can ultimately be peace. And ideally now, it should get easier, as President Trump mentioned, that if the Iranians were to retaliate or strike against any U.S. interests in the region or here in the homeland, that it would be met swiftly and more in a consequential manner, And it would be very ugly for Iran if they chose to go down this path. And as we know, Steve Witkoff's still in communication with his Iranian counterpart about their program, among perhaps other things now. But President Trump said that it would be a swift response and that it would be much easier than what was pulled off just a few short hours ago. It's amazing to think that the B-2 bombers were not detected, that they did not have surface-to-air missiles or anti-aircraft fired upon them. The Iranians didn't even know they were there until their facility was destroyed in Faroe. So an amazing thing to comprehend. God bless our military. God bless our troops. God bless everyone who is part of this mission and continues to wait on standby in order to protect the United States and our interests and the Jewish people, ultimately, who deserve to exist. And it's very clear in biblical teaching and writing that Christians ought to pray for the peace of Israel, that they are the fulfillment of what was the original Mosaic Judaic laws. And this New Testament of ours asks for that as well, to pray for peace, but especially the peace of Israel and for the peace in the Middle East, because there may be some different interpretations of Revelation, but it's scary to reflect upon what's taking place in this day and age and how everything seems triggered. I hate that word, but triggered and primed for a perfect storm. But regardless, we continue to have faith in our president. We pray for him and we pray for everyone who has to make these very difficult decisions. Now we have some live footage here. It looks from open source intel. In Gaza, the Israeli Defense Force says it destroyed 2.5 kilometers of Hamas tunnels in the Kfar Jabala area of northern Gaza and released footage of their operation. That looks remarkable. A quick strike, my goodness. You see that infrared there. 2.5 kilometers of Hamas tunnels destroyed, and we'll watch to see if there's any casualties as a result of terrorists that could have potentially been in those tunnels. Now we know that it seems as if now most of the Middle East world has come out against Hamas, Hezbollah, the Houthi rebels, all funded by the Iranians, and strongly condemning, perhaps the strongest condemnation coming from Saudi Arabia, of Iran's strikes against Qatar and the United States Air Force Base there that President Trump was just at. And something you hate to see, a burning American flag. Iran's Supreme Leader Khamenei shared a flyer showing an American flag burning with the caption, "We did not violate anyone, and we absolutely do not accept being violated by anyone, nor will we submit to any act of aggression. This is the logic of the Iranian nation." And how insane is the leader of Iran to even put out something that stupid, because you will be met with your demise, sir. And it's been very clear on the part of President Trump. It's been very clear on the part of this United States military under the civilian leadership and the control and command of General Raisin Kane from the Joint Chiefs of Staff serving as chairman. But Supreme Leader Khamenei is really foolish for putting out a statement like that after President Trump has been very clear on the issue. So again, from Iran's Supreme Leader, we do not violate anyone, and we absolutely do not accept being violated by anyone, nor will we submit to any acts of aggression. This is only the logic of the Iranian nation as they're burning an American flag, which they have done on countless occasions. And really, it's a disgusting sight to see. And it looks as if there will be a price to pay for not only his rhetoric, but his actions in continuing to try to spin these centrifuges and bring about a nuclear program against the will of the American people, against the will of the Israelis, and against really the interests of the Western world. And it would be one thing, they could have one if they were a peaceful nation. They're not. They've proven it time and again with their support of thugs throughout the region, including the Houthis, Hezbollah, also Hamas, and all of the hell that they reigned through funding terror operations in ISIS, and especially in Iraq against our troops. How many countless Americans have they maimed over the course of the years? This is something that was a long time coming, and something that many people can I believe, ultimately agree on, regardless of where they stood on the issue. We don't want nation building. We don't want ground troops in there. But President Trump acknowledges all options on the table, and we want peace. Now it's up to the Iranians to seek that peace and to seek dismantling anything else that they might have for weapons of mass destruction. They cannot have a bomb. President Trump has been abundantly clear on this for years and years, really dating back to 2011, with all of those countless quotes that I read through, promising over the course of the last few months 15 times that Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. Over 40 times on the campaign trail in 2024, they cannot have a nuclear weapon. And then going back to almost that same exact verbiage and language from 2011, they cannot have a nuclear weapon. It's very clear, it's very concise. And now Middle East partners are all joining in that, condemning Iran's missile attacks on Qatar and the United States. Stick with us here on Right Side Broadcasting Network Live as we bring you all of the breaking news in the Middle East. We'll be with a quick commercial break and see you on the other side.
Welcome to Right Side Broadcasting Network, your trusted conservative news outlet. At RSBN, we deliver the truth when the mainstream media falls short. Since 2015, we've proudly broadcasted every single one of President Trump's iconic MAGA rallies, bringing you the excitement and energy live before anyone else. By watching RSBN, you get an unfiltered front row view of the action on the ground. We interview the crowds to give a voice to millions of Americans just like you. We show you President Trump's speeches in their entirety, free from interruptions and censorship. We cover the stories that matter to you with the integrity and passion you deserve. Thank you for choosing RSBN as your home for America First News. Together, we stand strong, united, and informed. So join us and be part of the right side of history.
Hey y'all, it's Silk from the Diamond and Silk Chit Chat live show. Look, don't forget to check me out right here on RSBN Network. Be sure to watch the show on Right Side Broadcasting Network, and I want you to support Right Side Broadcasting Network. Yes, it's imperative that you do so, okay? I look to see y'all soon. Bye-bye.
To celebrate our newest launch, Rev 7, I'm bringing you an amazing introductory offer, plus an exclusive overstock sale that you're not going to want to miss. Rev 7 is our premium energy drink that tastes great and gives you energy all day with no jitters and no crashes. That's because there's no sugar and no caffeine. I'm so sure you're going to love Rev 7 that for a limited time you can try our 3-pack absolutely free. Or check out our Percale bed sheets. I can't believe I'm even going to say this. Every color, every style, every size, only $29.88. So go to mypillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to save 20% on our Rev 7 12-packs or try our introductory 3-pack absolutely free. And our Percale bed sheets, all sizes, only $29.88, even the queens and kings. Inventory is extremely limited, so order now.
Welcome back to RSBN Live as we are monitoring everything happening in the Middle East at 3:25 on the East Coast. It is 12:25 on the West Coast. Welcome to what's a serious topic happening in this great land of ours, but really it's overseas. God forbid it ever comes here to our American soil. And you could see that there from the Iranian strike on the American military and the Qatari people as well in turn. Iran insists this was not an attack on Qatar. Okay, that's ridiculous. It's a National Security Council claim that the strike posed no threat to the Qatari people and that Iran remains committed to its historic ties with Doha despite launching missiles onto Qatari soil. This is the logic of these people. It's an insane leadership that lives in a doomsday world that almost envisions them being the only occupiers of the entire world, and nothing could be further from the truth from their communications realm. Now, President Trump saying that the sites we hit in Iran were totally destroyed, and everyone knows it. This is on Truth Social. Only the fake news would say anything different in order to try and demean as much as possible. And even they say they were pretty well destroyed. Working especially hard on this falsehood is Allison Cooper of Fake News CNN, Dumb Brian L. Roberts, the chairman of Concast, Johnny Carl of ABC Fake News, and always the losers of, again, Concast, NBC, Fake News. It never ends with the sleaze bags in the media. That's why their ratings are an all-time low. Zero credibility. And that's why we're here at RSBN to bring you a live desk that shows you all this, and ultimately so you can make up your minds about what might be happening in your neck of the woods and throughout the world. But what a sight there to see that their golden dome, if you will, in Qatar, blocking those ballistic missiles that were raining down on them. Now, Kristi Noem has stated there's an elevated threat in the United States regarding Iranian sleeper cells, even before the actions of tonight overseas. That heightened threat alert and travel alert happening for a number of United States interests. So if you are abroad right now and you happen to be tuning in here, make sure you know the contact for your embassy. Make sure you watch the United States State Department, Department of Homeland Security as well. I'm actually pulling up the website now to see if there's anything that can be shared specifically in regards to where you may go and turn for any State Department updates. I'm looking at the Department of State website here. And if you go to the statedepartment.gov, they have everything regarding President Trump's delivery of the speech on Saturday night, the worldwide caution alert that came out yesterday as well. I'll read that in its full context here. The conflict between Israel and Iran has resulted in disruptions to travel and periodic closure of airspace across the Middle East. There is the potential for demonstrations against U.S. citizens and interests abroad. The Department of State advises U.S. citizens worldwide to exercise increased caution. So please read this carefully, this travel advisory. There's a longer form that was put out on the State Department website at travel.state.gov. Now we have open source intel showing Iran's parliament and their National Security Commission has approved a bill to suspend cooperation with the IAEA, that is the International Atomic Energy Agency, the IAEA. So we're watching all of that. And that is a live look in the bowels of evil right there in the Iranian parliament. It is really an incredible leadership, incredible in the sense that they are really on the wrong side of history. We're on the right side of history. They are completely on a delusional different path. And it's one of totalitarianism. It's one of silencing opposing views. It's one that seeks to threaten the world. And they've been doing this now for nearly half a century. As the world awaits President Trump's response to all of this, he is in, as far as we know, the Situation Room. He had a 1 o'clock Eastern meeting 2.5 hours ago scheduled. Even earlier in the day, we get all the press briefings, the guidelines, and the notices from the White House, from Washington, D.C. as a whole of what's taking place. And we had some great other hearings planned today for you, but this is of the utmost importance. So we're bringing you all of this breaking news in real time at the RSBN live desk to bring you the most up-to-date response to see what is happening here. We know that national security team includes the Vice President of the United States, also Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth and Secretary of State Marco Rubio. And we'll see what is on the other side of this. What we do know right now, there are no reports of casualties from the Iranian strike on Qatar and our United States Air Force bases. In addition to that, we have many Middle East countries condemning the actions of Iran unequivocally. And perhaps the strongest voice in that, Saudi Arabia. And also the surprise one, at least if you follow all of this, the Middle East affairs, coming from the Palestinian Liberation Organization President Mahmoud Abbas, a sworn enemy of Israel and the Jewish people, strongly condemning the attack on Qatar. So many mixed interest here as you look throughout the Middle East, and historic enemies of Israel who have now worked in cooperation with them on a number of different issues, whether it be in trade or simply just calling for the peace, including Egypt. Now, OSINT Defender, we've been watching this closely via X. The United States forces operating surface-to-air missile batteries shot down the Iranian ballistic missiles. So they're fired earlier at the Al Udeid Air Force Base in Qatar. Two Pentagon officials told the New York Times. So again, U.S. forces operating surface-to-air missiles shot down the Iranian ballistic missiles fired earlier. So I was saying that Golden Dome over Qatar, disregard that. This was, now can be confirmed, U.S. forces operating those surface-to-air missiles in those batteries over our Air Force bases. So good luck, Iran. This is now the opportunity for the people of Iran, the millennials, the Gen Zers, the people who are seeking freedom. We do not have an issue with you. We don't want to fight you. The Israeli people don't want to fight you. We have to stop your government from obtaining nuclear weapons because of the hell they want to rain upon the Western world and really in turn the entire world. They don't have the same outlook of mutually assured destruction that followed World War II and the dropping of the atomic weapons on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And this is a whole new ballgame with the strength of these weapons. As President Trump has said, God forbid any of this goes off, because that's truly the end. If you were to have these missiles fired upon one another, it would be no turning back with nuclear fallout. So we await world response, actually, for President Trump. The world awaits for President Trump to respond to all of this. These developing moments here at 3:33 on the East Coast. And we've spoken to those experts who are studying this closely within the United States and abroad. Friends like Ali Jafar Rezada, who has just done an amazing job outlining this and why these people in Iran might want to take the opportunity, a country of 92 million people, it's a large country, who would want a new form of government, a new way of life, a return to the beautiful Persian culture that once occupied that land. We know in 1979, the revolution to remove the Shah caused heartache and chaos throughout the region, and it's really been terrible ever since for this slice of the world. And I had the opportunity to watch Argo over the weekend and really look at the similarities between what took place during the Carter administration to now, and getting those 6 hostages who were in the embassy, actually the Canadian embassy, helping out our American diplomats in such a great way there when it was ransacked by Islamic revolutionaries. And the storyline there of literally Hollywood working with the Canadians, working with the United States, kind of an amazing thing that needed authorization from President Carter himself. And there were many loopholes and tough moments in there that these people might not have gotten out. But it was really an incredible job done by the CEA and the clandestine services in order to get those first people out during that revolution that led to 444 American hostages in Iranian custody and ultimately being released on January 20th, 1981. It was extraordinary to see all of that. And actually, it was there 444 days where that took place, of countless hostages being stuck in Iran, and dating back to the transition between the Carter administration and the Reagan administration. And looking back on that history, there is somewhat of mixed baggage there, because it was clear that President Reagan was coming in tougher. There's no doubt about it. And that Jimmy Carter had somewhat of an appeasement strategy, and he carried that two-state solution, especially with Palestine and Israel, going into the later days of his life. So we knew President Reagan was going to be tougher about it, as President Trump is, but a lot of kudos to that clandestine service in those final days of that conflict, the hostages being held in Iran, even in the Carter administration working overtime to bring those Americans home. Now, Jennifer Griffin reporting via X that U.S. officials tell Fox there is no evidence that there is any U.S. base other than Al Udeid in Qatar having been targeted by Iranian missiles, air defense sirens, and the closure of airspace over Iraq, Bahrain, UAE, Kuwait was all done protectively. The only missiles fired as of yet were fired at a U.S. air base in Qatar. No Americans were injured or killed as a result of this Iranian missile strike, which was intercepted by air defense systems. And also OSINT, Defender, reporting that U.S. forces operating surface-to-air missile batteries shot down the Iranian ballistic missiles fired earlier at Al Udeid Air Force Base in Qatar. Two Pentagon officials told that to the New York Times. So we're watching all this as the Dow Jones seems to be going up for some reason. That seems odd considering what has taken place over the course of the last several hours here. But we are awaiting a response from President Trump, who might still be in the Situation Room with his team discussing all of this, these important developments, and perhaps if there will be a response or not by the Americans. As President Trump said on Saturday night that if Iran tried to do anything like this, there would be a swift and total response from the United States military, and that would be much easier than what took place in the operation on Saturday night into early Sunday morning Iran time, where the surprise attack happened by two B-12 bombers and also countless military personnel from the Navy, the Air Force, and throughout our armed forces sending in those Tomahawks to knock out the Iranian nuclear sites, 3 of them in total, and to really dismantle what they were pursuing to do, have a nuclear weapon to cause chaos and wreak damage and hell across the Middle East and in turn for Israel. And really, I'm of belief that watching this over the years that Israel would not have struck unless there was an imminent threat. They calculated that. They did not want this, but they were not afraid to respond. Same with the United States in this regard. We know this president, we know this team, that the last option on the table is the military. At the same time, they're unafraid to use it, and that's what makes them dangerous and unpredictable. And that's what's truly masculine and good about this team, is that they are unpredictable and that they will do everything in their interest, as President Trump and Secretary of State Marco Rubio have said, to defend all American interests. If it's of American interest, we will pursue it and protect it. As the world awaits President Trump's response at 3:39 Eastern. We're going to wrap right now, but if there's any continued breaking news or any other stories, we'll be on it for you at Right Side Broadcasting Network Live. Have a wonderful afternoon. I know it's a tough subject, but keep praying and let's think about our troops and get them home safely. It's an all-volunteer force that is protecting this great nation and doing an extraordinary job in the last several days and hours to defend the homeland against all enemies, foreign and domestic. For all my wonderful colleagues on the right side of history, I'm Robert McNeely. Have a lovely afternoon. God bless. We'll see you soon.